Well, good morning, everybody. This is your morning Mapsplainer for April 2nd, 2019. Look what time it is. And before we get started, there's something on my desk. Oh, how'd that get here? Oh, uh-oh. I'll just put that right there, whatever that was. Today we're going to talk about the Open Skies Treaty, because that is getting a lot of breathless headlines up in Sacramento. This happens every 6 months or so. The headline is Russian surveillance aircraft seen over Sacramento. And then we're told that the Russians are spying on California, and all this stuff. We go through this several times a year. It's a provision of the 1992 Open Skies Treaty. It was President Bush, as seen here, not to scale, but actually on a scale, who proposed the Treaty for Open Skies. It now has some like 28 signatories, Russia being one of them. And this was in the aftermath of the Cold War. It was decided that just to lower tensions in the future, that countries should be able to just openly fly surveillance aircraft over some of the most sensitive facilities of a neighbor or a former foe or whatever. Thus began the Open Skies Treaty. We do it in a modified 767 over Russia, a U.S. Air Force 767. One of the provisions of the treaty is that the flyover nation gets to have observers on the aircraft. So here's what's going on. There is an aircraft called the Tu-154. It's a very common airliner in Eastern Europe, right there. Looks like a old 727. And it's a Russian Air Force aircraft. They have several of them. And about twice a year, they fly over the United States. And California obviously figures into their curiosity very much, especially Southern California, because of all the high-tech aerospace that we have down here. And so the aircraft currently is at Travis Air Force Base, north of Sacramento. And it is flying a pretty normal path. First of all, what the aircraft does is it has an array of sensors that are side-looking and sweeping. So it literally flies over, what it's interested in. So in this case, it flies over, what was that? It'll fly over Edwards Air Force Base, China Lake, and places like that. And it'll do it in several flights. So let's go to the big map on that one. So here's California, and Sacramento, of course, up there, Travis Air Force Base above it. In this case, the Open Skies Treaty requires manned aircraft. So none of this, no drones. So here I have a Tupolev Tu-154 to scale, actually a B-52, and it takes off from Travis, and it flies to the immediately to the south. Usually it flies over Lemoore Naval Air Station, but when it gets down here, it has a particular interest in the Antelope Valley because of Edwards Air Force Base, not to scale, seen there. But also, very interestingly, in the Antelope Valley, the former, what was called the Tehachapi Radar Cross-Section Range is out here. And they always seem to fly over it, which is weird because it hasn't been used in well over a decade. But it's in plain view. If you're on Highway 138, if you drive up to Palmdale, then you want to get out to I-5, you'll take Highway 138. As you go way out past Avenue 200 West, you can look north, and there's a facility where Lockheed used to put aircraft up on a pedestal, and they would shoot radar at it. They would shoot known world systems, Russian systems, Chinese systems, and see what the cross-section looked like, see how stealthy the aircraft was. And they stopped using it because of all the solar panels that started going up in the Antelope Valley. They began giving false reflections. So it was useless. So they moved it to the China Lake area. but the Russians still fly over Antelope Valley and fly specifically over the RCS range, as it's called, the Tehachapi RCS. And then they continue on to Edwards Air Force Base, and then they always fly over Plant 42 in Palmdale, which is one of the most sensitive places in the U.S. Air Force. And then in a flight 2 days ago, they flew over Area 51 in Nevada, and then returned to Travis. And then day before yesterday, they flew the flight I just described down south through the Antelope Valley, Edwards Air Force Base, out to Oxnard, out to Channel Islands, Point Mugu. Point Mugu Pacific Missile Test Range and Vandenberg are also very, very sensitive places for the Air Force and the Navy. And Open Skies allows the Russians to fly over it. So here's the deal. If you're wondering, well, oh my God, are we letting them see all of our classified shit? Well, no, because the flights are announced, they're planned, they're approved, and Edwards Air Force Base knows when this aircraft is approaching. You can see it on apps like Flight Radar 24 because it has to broadcast like a commercial airliner on ADS-B, the satellite communication system. So what's the purpose of it? It's mainly for checking construction of new sites, things like that. The Chinese don't do Open Skies. They're not a part of it. And so we have to use satellites to check up on them. They have a ground-based anti-satellite laser station now that was just discovered by an Indian satellite expert. But Open Skies is something that we take advantage of. Our aircraft is not as advanced as the Russian aircraft. The Russians pour a lot of money into it. But like I say, it's a little silly because the countermeasure is simply roll everything inside the hangar. You know, just like when the satellite's coming overhead, you know, and you stop training or whatever. So anyway, no need to panic. The Russians are not coming, or if they are, they're easily identifiable and viewable. They fly in a straight line at about 10,000 feet over their object area, whether it's China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base, or Palmdale, and then go out to the Channel Islands. So we'll be seeing them again in about 6 months. And I will re-explain Open Skies in about 6 months. Thank you. This is your morning Mapsplainer for April 2nd, 2019.